Hello, everyone. I'm Colleen Vanderzyden, and this is Creating an Inspired Life. I am so happy you're here tonight watching and listening. I have a great show planned. I'm a medium, and as a medium, I help people connect with their loved ones on the other side. And I'm also a certified spiritual life coach. And as a life coach, I help people create their dreams. And as you know, it is my passion, my purpose in life to help people create their most awesome, unique, inspired life. And we want to do whatever we need to do to get to that point. We never want to settle for whatever's happening because we have the power within ourselves to create the life we want to have. Isn't that awesome? That is the most awesome thing ever. You don't have to put up with life crap if you don't want to. And if you're putting up with it, it's because you want to. So never settle for anything. Tonight, I have a really special guest here, and it's someone who works along the same lines that I do. And she has a passion as well to help people live their best lives. And this is Dr. Barbara Plasker, and she's the author of Simple Ways to Transform Your Life, Lessons Learned by a Late Bloomer. Isn't that the most creative, wonderful title in the world? Lessons Learned by a Late Bloomer. You know what that means, don't you? And it's available on Amazon and actually just launched last week or something. So you have to go buy that so she can get some, publicity and stuff from her book because it's so cool. Now, she was a teacher, and she's an author, she's a speaker, she's a certified professional coach. Doesn't she sound amazing already? She earned her master's degree in industrial design when she was 40, and then her doctorate in adult education at 56. And then she was downsized at 64, but got another job, and then retired from that at 75. Then she moved into her new career of coaching, and it's called It's Never Too Late to Bloom. And she teaches workshops, and she coaches people on how to use the lessons that are in her book so that they can reach their full potential and access that inner power that they have. It's very exciting. So, Barbara, thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you for having me, Colleen. It's a pleasure to be with you and your audience. I hope that I can help them find their way if they're lost, and if they're there already, then that's great too.
Yeah. And, it's really cool because we have a great audience that loves to learn about how to create their best life and how to live life to their fullest. And when we think about what we can do to help them, I know you have so many ideas, so I don't want to waste time. We want to get right to it. So if you want to share the inspiration for the work you do, what got you going in this work?
I'll tell you, Colleen, I had a very difficult time in my 20s. I got married when I was 20, and I had 3 children by the time I was 30. But in those 10 years, I had a lot of tragedy as well. My mother died when I was pregnant with my 3rd child. My father died 2 years later. My father-in-law passed away, 3 grandparents passed away in that time period, and 2 uncles. By the time I was 30, I was a mess. My self-esteem was so low. I was numb, and I was numb for 5 years. And at 35, I said, what's happening to me? What happened to me? Where did I go? What do I feel? Who am I? I just knew nothing about myself because I was lost in taking care of my kids, and that was my focus. I don't know how my kids grew up because I don't even know that I was there. And at 35, I just started to try to resurrect myself, be reborn again, so to speak. And the first thing I did was I learned to meditate. I took a transcendental meditation training, and that helped me to get clarity in my mind when I started to meditate. And I made a commitment to myself that I was going to devote the rest of my life to finding out who I was and to become me. And so that's how I spent the next 40 years.
That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing because I woke up about 40 as well, and because I realized I didn't know who I was either. And, we wake up when we're supposed to wake up, yes. Don't we?
Yeah. One of the chapters in my book is readiness. We can't really move forward until we're ready. And I give this silly example of my grandchildren. I had a 6-year-old grandson talking to his 18-year-old grandson, who said to him, I can shave. And my older grandson said, no, you can't. Yes, I can. Well, you don't have hair on your face. And he said, well, I have hair on my head. So, he wasn't ready to hear the conversation about shaving. And we have to wait until we're ready to have whatever conversation we need to have with ourselves.
Yes, it's all into a divine timing. We wake up when we're supposed to wake up, and sometimes it's something we hear. You may hear something on the radio, you might see something, you might have an interaction with someone, and sometimes people who are listening and watching might all of a sudden go, "Oh, that makes sense," and something speaks to them. So, with your book, what's your book about? How do people use it?
What I did was I took all of the concepts that I learned along the way, and I made a chapter out of it. So the first chapter is acceptance. We need to learn to accept whatever is happening in our life in order for us to change. So sometimes we become aware of something that needs to change, and then we want to change it right away without going through the process of acceptance. We need to get, okay, not approval, but all right, I accept this. This gives me a place to start from. And then I can start to explore where I have to go. But if I'm in denial, or if I'm resisting the thing that I have to accept, I can't move forward. So that's the first chapter. There's a chapter on awakening and one on assumptions. So it's also alphabetical. So the last chapter is zigzag. And what does that mean? It means that life is not a straight line. I'm not going to go from A to Z. I'm going to go to A to J to B to M. Life is just a mess. You cannot plan. And I think that's one of the things that gets people into trouble, because they want certainty. They want a guarantee. So they're not going to be ready until they get a guarantee. And they will never get a guarantee, so they're not going to go anywhere.
Oh, and these are topics I've talked about so frequently. I've talked about uncertainty, having to live with that, and being aware, and resistance. We've talked about so many of those things. I call them the twists and turns of life, your zigzags.
Right.
And because we never go where we think we're going to go. We have our whole lives planned out, and then it doesn't work. Exactly. And we think, what is this? Right. And it's a crazy thing. And so, with everything you've learned, and you've had such great experiences, and you've had so many insights and everything, what do you think is something that stops people from going after their dreams?
I have this idea that if we have a vision of where we want to go, when we get that vision, the next thing that happens is, I call it the wall of doubt. So let's say you do a vision board, and you put your dream up on a vision board. When that wall of doubt comes down, you don't see the vision anymore. You just see all the doubt that you have. So it could be fear. It could be fear of success. It could be fear of failure. You could have no confidence in yourself. One of my big things was I didn't know how to do things. Like right now, I wrote a book. I didn't know how to write a book, so I had to get help. Now I have a book, I have to promote it. I don't know how to promote the book. So I'm always learning as I grow. And some people think, I have a cute story. My youngest son, when we try to teach him how to swim, he wouldn't let anybody teach him because he saw his two older brothers swimming. He thought they were born knowing how to swim. So he should know how to swim. Don't teach me anything. I'm going to do it. He couldn't do it because he didn't seek out the help that he was offered to him. And I think that we need to be able to ask for help when we don't know.
Yes. Yeah, and sometimes, people see somebody else do something, and we project onto the other people in a way and think that, oh, they're better than we are. They know more than we are. But we aren't born with that knowledge. No one's born with anything.
No. So we have to give ourselves a chance to learn to do what we want to do. And that's the mode I'm in now. I'm 77 years old.
Amen.
I'm in a learning mode again. And that to me is exciting because I love to learn. So I'll get there where I'm supposed to go sometime soon, maybe not. But it's the adventure of it that turns me on.
Yeah, exactly. Because, when we try to control and we think we need to get someplace at a certain time, it never works out that way. And when we accept, just like you said, we accept that it's moving at its own pace, right, and we're going to get where we're supposed to get, it does make our stress levels go down and we feel so much better. And, it's a wonderful thing because you do have so many experiences with the different things you did as you were growing up, so to speak. And talk about being that late bloomer. Tell people about that, being a late bloomer.
Oh, you know, something else that inspired me. I was walking one day, and I saw an acorn on the road. Now that acorn has a big, huge oak tree inside of it if it's planted in the right place. But if it's going to stay on the road, it's going to remain an acorn. And I see the same potential in people. People who don't land in the right place will stay where they are unless something somehow transplanted to a place where they can grow and where somebody accepts them unconditionally, loves them, gives them room to try things. Then they can bloom, and that's kind of how I translated that.
I love that. I love that acorn landing in the road. And it's such a visual, you can see that it's not going to grow in the road.
No.
And and so many people do have these acorns that land in the wrong places in their lives. What do people do when they have people around them who are not supportive, when they're trying to create something new or go after their dreams? What do people do with that?
Right. It's very hard. It's very hard. I have a piece that I've written a long time ago that I have to continue to develop. But the first column is when your boss or your parent does something, what happens to you? So I had a boss that kept giving me double messages. So I just was confused all the time. I never knew what he wanted. And so there were many things that he did that confused me. But I was at that point in my life where I was willing to hear what my mind was doing in response to what was happening to me. And I think that's what I try to develop in people, will help them see the consciousness that's running their life, that controls them, and they have no idea that they're not in control. It's their mind that's doing it to them.
Yeah, I just spoke about that, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago for a lecture and also on a radio show, and I was talking about it's like our minds have a mind of their own, right, and they go crazy in there sometimes. And people don't realize that they can change that perception. Exactly. Now, with your boss, were you aware at that time that you could make different choices in your perception to be able to handle the boss better?
Yes. I stopped taking what he was doing personally. I didn't make it my problem. It was him that was confused. The pattern, the many patterns that he had were very similar to the patterns my parents had. They said to me, you can do anything, but you can't do this. Such a double message. Darling, you're brilliant. You can do everything you want, but you can't, go to the movies by yourself. It's just like, it's a push-pull relationship, and you don't know how to interpret that if you're not aware about those things.
Yeah, you don't even know what's really true either. It can really throw people off when you get reactions like that from your boss or people in your house or whatever it is. Yeah, that's really interesting. And you said something very important about not taking things personally and recognizing that he was confused, and that was so well put, that he was confused. He just didn't understand. And it's great because after you took control over your thoughts, you must have felt better about what was happening, even though you didn't like what was happening, but how you were handling it, and you could handle it. Did that help you a lot?
What happened in that situation, because he was a new boss, my old boss retired, the woman that hired me, and I could not deal with him, and so I left. It was a job I loved. I was there for 7 years. It took me 2 years to get another job. Because it was not a good job market. But I wasn't going to stay because I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to control him. I had no power to control him. The only power I had was me, and I had to do what was right for me.
Oh, and that is a perfect lesson for everyone, that we have to do what's right for us, and that we can't control another person. We just can't. And sometimes things happen in our lives that get in our way and stop us from moving forward. Do you have any kind of strategies or anything like that help people get past their barriers, to help them step into the change they need to make?
Well, what I've done, I think of my mind as a radio, and it's got a lot of stations, but it's got one station that plays all the time, and it complains, it blames, it sees everything negative, it just is miserable. It beats me up, it criticizes everything if it's not perfect, and I realize that I have other stations playing in that head of mine, and one of them is gratitude. And if I can switch to gratitude, change that station, I'm living a whole different life. I once had a therapist that said to me, Barbara, what are you going to do with the space in your head that's freed up when you stop being so negative? I said to myself, I'm not negative. And then I took a good look at myself. And what I realized was that 15% of my life was not great, and the 85% was wonderful. I never looked at the wonderful. I only looked at the 15%, and that became 100% of my thinking. So I switched the way I looked at my life, and I looked at the 85% and made that 100%. And I'm just living in a grateful place right now.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a great analogy there. Now, if anybody's just joining us, I'm talking to Dr. Barbara Plasker, and she's the author of Simple Ways to Transform Your Life. I can't read my handwriting. Lessons Learned by a Late Bloomer, and it's available on Amazon. And if you're just joining and don't know who I am, I'm Colleen Vanderzyden, and this is Creating an Inspired Life. And Barbara is telling us all sorts of great ways that you can change your life. And that's what we want to do. We want to change it. Sometimes we have fear when things are happening in our lives, too. What can people do to overcome the fear that's involved in their life challenges?
The way I put it is that if you want to change, your desire has to be greater than your comfort zone. And if you're determined to stay in your comfort zone, you will stay in your comfort zone and you won't move any place. So you have to have a strong desire to get out of the situation, whatever it is that you're in.
Yes, and also a strong desire to change that voice in your head, too.
Exactly.
That you were talking about. Because that voice creates all sorts of things. And if your mind has the power to create negativity and critical and judgment and all sorts of things, then we should be able to use our mind to step into a different power as well, shouldn't we?
And we can. We can. So everybody has to know that they can do that. And they don't. A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, they don't. They really don't. And do you have suggestions for anybody to help them step into that power of, is it how they could change that voice in their head? Is there something in particular you think works well?
Yeah, I have a 4-step process that's explained in my book. The steps are observation, awareness, acceptance, and change/choice. So I recommend that you start listening to the station that's playing, and when you hear something that you say, no, I don't want to be here anymore, you have to work on hearing it all the time, and when you become aware of it in the moment, that's when you can change and go to another place. But if you're still lost in that thought, and I recommend one thought at a time, because your mind is just going with so much stuff all at once. Just find one, work on that one, and then once you get clear on what's happening, then you're in awareness, and then you can go to the next state of awareness, acceptance. You go to acceptance by now.
Yes, and when people accept, they don't want to be judging themselves, thinking,
Right.
oh, I'm a horrible person, I'll never be able to do this, I can't change that thing. So they still have to be aware of their thoughts even when they move into acceptance then, don't they?
Exactly. And then when you go to change, you have choices. If you go to the change place, you can choose to either continue going back to that thought, repeating that negativity over and over again, but you can say stop. Like, I still have a voice in my head. When I make a mistake or I take a wrong turn someplace, the voice says, stupid, it's stupid. And I've learned to say, I'm not stupid, I'm a smart woman, I just made a mistake.
Exactly. And we sometimes listen to that voice. again, instill, and everyone, I don't know if anybody really can get rid of that voice, but knowing that it can happen, so you have the stupid voice, I have the judgmental voice, that kind of thing, and we can step back into that. So we still always have to maintain that awareness and that acceptance. But if we can believe that we can make a change and make a different choice, then we can totally shift our lives, can't we?
Yes, exactly.
Yes. And when you look back over your life and everything you've done and everything that has happened in your life, everything you've created, how do you feel? What does it say to you when you look back over your life?
I'm just exhilarated. I'm excited. I'm just over the moon because this book that I started in 2009. I stopped writing it because I didn't know how to do that. In the meantime, my husband had Alzheimer's disease, and I was for 10 years. And he started in 2001. He was sick. Wow. And then he passed away, and then I started again with the book, and I got help because I knew I couldn't do it by myself. So I went and signed up for a coaching program on writing.
That's perfect, because people sometimes don't realize that you can ask for help. It's okay to do that. And right. So I'm sure they're appreciating the wisdom that you're sharing tonight, mm-hmm. and how they can use you as a role model and as a guide for their own lives.
Yes.
What do you think? And I know you have so many good ideas, so this might be a little harder question. What do you think is the most important tip, or a particular tip that you really enjoy that would help people live their best lives? We have 2 minutes left, so do you have something in particular you want to share?
Love yourself, self-love, self-compassion. I had another word written down, but I can't remember.
That's okay. That must be the most important one.
Right. Just be kind to yourself. Kindness, self-love, self-compassion. Give yourself a break. You're not the worst thing in the world that ever lived. You're just a human being, and you can embrace yourself and love yourself. That will get you moving. Because every time that stupid voice comes, or the judgmental voice comes, it just sinks your self-esteem. And what you need to do is realize that you're just a human being and you're not perfect. That's another problem, is perfectionism.
Oh, yes, it is. I suffer from that. So how could people reach you if they want to connect with you after this show is over? We have 60 seconds left.
Okay, so I'll give you you can call me. I'll give you a phone number. It's 845-393-4673. I'm also I'm a life coach, and I would love to work with anybody who really who has the desire to move on in their life. I'd love to work with you. You can reach me by email, dr.barbara Plasker, BARBARAPLASKER @gmail.com.
Okay, and that is great. And we have to wrap up right now. So that's Barbara Plasker. You can also find her on Facebook. It's Never Too Late to Bloom. I'm Colleen Vanderzyden, and this was Creating an Inspired Life. You can find me at psychicmediumcolleen.com. And I will talk to you next week. You have a good week. Goodbye. Thank you, Barbara.